Now, I thought King Charles had promised to stay out of politics now that he's king, but there he was at that United Nations Climate Conference in Dubai, the one Chris Boner's going to, giving a speech on his favourite crusade.
In 2050, our grandchildren won't be asking what we said. They will be living with the consequences of what we did or didn't do. So if we act together to safeguard our precious planet, the welfare of all our people will surely follow.
Joining me from London is writer, broadcaster and commentator Esther Krakue. Esther, thanks for your time. Look, how can the King be giving a political speech telling countries to do more to fight global warming when back home the UK government wants to do less?
Yes, it's ironic, isn't it? The King and the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, and Lord Cameron, who's now our Foreign Secretary, actually went to COP28. And I'm struggling to keep track with the number of COPs we keep having, just because I can't keep track of all the promises we keep making. But anyway, they flew to the conference in private jets. But this time their private jets were fueled by 30% sustainable fuel, which I imagine is probably reused oil from your fish and chip shop. Now, King Charles argues that his stance on the environment is not political, that guarding the environment and trying to protect the climate is apolitical. We should all want to do that. And he's been very consistent, basically, since, the 1970s, when he first started being very passionate about environmental causes. Obviously, he's straddling a fine line because we are in a cost of living crisis, and many would argue that Britain does more than its fair share to try and tackle climate change and head towards this arbitrary date of 2050 to achieve net zero. But it's something that he's clearly very passionate about. I think that the British public, in as much as we're not necessarily very keen on it, we've learned to tolerate it, especially because he's toned it down since becoming king. And Prince William, not too long ago, was heard saying that he wouldn't actually, try and enforce people to change their lifestyles to try and reach net zero. Actually, signaling that they're a bit more attuned with the public and how the public are feeling, being told by royals to try and change their lifestyles drastically to hit net zero. So there is, obviously a sense of, God, again, but it's a bit more tailored now to actually where the public stand on the issue.
Yeah, but, look, I'd believe that he was doing this balancing act if he also went to a conference and said, look, energy costs are really crippling the poor. The poor can't afford to heat their homes in winter, which is true. There's been surveys of that. You've got to do something about that. But he doesn't do that. You've got to do more, not you've got to do, help people with their power bills.
Well, I'm assuming the countries he's referring to actually do more can't be the UK, because, again, that would be tone deaf. I'm assuming he's referring to the Chinese or the Indonesians or the Indians who are policing to their heart's content. Yeah. This conference was actually really interesting because the president, Sultan Al-Jaber, said that unless we want to, reverse the world's population back into caves, phasing out fossil fuels is unrealistic. And many at the, COP28 were gasping in horror. How dare he? But he is right. What are you going to replace, our reliance on fossil fuels with? The technology just isn't there, and someone has to say it.
Absolutely. I think this has been such a truth pill for many activists. The president of who, by the way, does head a very big oil company, but never mind, I'm sure it's not conflicting.
Yes.
Meanwhile, so there are reports that the King and Prince William are going to hold a crisis meeting to deal with claims in that book we discussed by Omid Scobie, someone close to Meghan Markle, one might say her mouthpiece, wife of Prince Harry. A book that said that Charles and also William's wife, Princess Kate, both asked what colour Markle's first child would be. That's the development of the story. The Telegraph, London Telegraph, reports that sources close to the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle, insist she never intended for them to be publicly identified and deny that their contents were leaked to Mr. Scobie by anyone in her camp. Is that believable or even sufficient?
Well, the only thing that will be sufficient at this point is if the Sussexes come out and actually denounce the revelations of this book. We already know that there's so many lies in this book. I mean, Omid Scobie brazenly asserted that Piers Morgan had 3 telephone calls with Queen Camilla, which he obviously denies. He said Queen Camilla doesn't even do phone calls, which makes sense because you can have your phones tapped or, people can misconstrue conversations. So it makes sense that a high-ranking member of the royal family is not engaging in phone calls with former editors of British newspapers. But Omid Scobie has has been very brazen in how he's decided to go about promoting this book. He's saying that, you know, he didn't leak the names of the 2 alleged royal racists, even though you can't translate names. The names had to be in there for the translators to just translate the copy. So he somehow thinks the British public are stupid. The deafening silence from the Sussex camp is what most people find incredible, because it was the Sussexes that decided to sit in front of Oprah and talk about, you know, the royal members of the royal family questioning what their baby would look like, even though it's a pretty normal thing to question what your baby would look like, particularly if you're in an interracial couple. I find it very strange that that's something that really offended Meghan Markle, even though she wasn't there at the conversation when the conversation happened, and she's just relaying something that Prince Harry told her. So, you know, it's very weird. We know that the Sussexes are not going to be invited to Archie's godfather's wedding, particularly because this whole row has really heightened tensions with the royal family. And it would be in the royal family's, you know, they would be right to try and sue, because Omid has clearly told so many lies in this book that you don't know what to believe. But what I find disheartening and disappointing is the fact that the Harry and Meghan have remained silent on this, because it's clearly incredibly damaging. And for them to not say anything, they just seems happy to let these rumours proliferate.
Why don't they just say, we didn't take it as racist and we disown the claims? And yeah, because those names, by the way, were only in the letters that Meghan Markle wrote to the King. So that's where they came from. Esther Krakue, thanks for your time.